He could have said, "I hate it. This is terrible. Put it
It's
back."
funny. I was telling some girls the other day. I was like,
Well, my computer
I
might
could
cut out one or
insult
the
you
other.
about your hair, and you would rather accept that than me complimenting you about your hair. It was like, what world do we live in?
Yes.
David's world. I'm kidding.
Actually, no. If you lived in my world, there'd be a lot more eyeballs.
Just like on people.
I'll show you guys an awesome piece of concept art.
Oh, I knew it had to have something to do with his art.
Well, it's not my art, but I'll say this was a major inspiration to my art. Let me find you a larger image. ¿Dónde está la biblioteca?
I don't know where it is. Where's the library?
Yeah.
I don't know. I speak Spanish? What? Mind blown.
I'm actually referencing a movie when I say that.
Wait, here we go. He's got his little thing. Redirecting.
Oh.
That's not at all creepy.
Yeah.
Why can't you just like non-creepy art? I mean, it's not that hard. There's so much of it out there.
I think the artists tend to not like non-creepy art.
Okay. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so everybody do this. Everybody pull out your phone or some device that you can use as a timer, because I want everybody to put themselves on a clock for how long they're talking. So it's kind of self-guided. Obviously, spirit of the law, not letter of the law. If you say everything in a minute, or if you say everything you want to say on something in 30 seconds, that would be good. But I really want to hone our ability to quickly say what we need to say, to whimsically say what we need to say, and then also I want to bring in people like primarily Kara, because often we're talking over you. So I definitely want to be able to bring you in more often into the conversation. And it doesn't have to be, David, Kara, then Calvin, David, Kara, then Calvin, Calvin, Kara, then it doesn't need to be that. But I just want to keep a timer on each of our you know what I'm saying.
I do, and I appreciate that. I don't think I'm as quick-witted as you guys are, and so often there are so many things I think about commenting on while one of you talking, and that when it's actually my turn, I'm like,
well, last time, and this that might work for you, Kara. Before we get into the conversation, last week you did say it as a throwaway line, like, "Oh my gosh, there was so much there. I feel like I should have taken notes." Take notes.
Oh, I totally have
if you
my
feel like you need
notepad,
to.
and I'm ready to go.
But I do like the idea of kind of trying to get this done in an hour. That way, I still kind of have time to kind of chill out and maybe watch TV or read some stuff.
That's what I need to do.
Laundry, yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Let me hold on one sec. I had to go get my iPad. You all still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I had a weird feedback loop when I came back over. Cancel, back. The Jacob Sessions. Sent mail. Jacob Sessions, sent. All right. Bad dating experiences in the church. I think we kind of touched on this in another podcast at one point where we talked about, breaking up with people badly. And I think, Kara, you had talked about, some guy that you really liked, and he was like, "Oh, that's so nice." So I always thought that was funny.
That's the story of my life.
Story of Kara's life. Okay, so the question that I sent was, what does the church get right about its message to single people? What does it get wrong? What's a better way forward for the church in this area? And I sent the article from Relevant Magazine about Christians and dating. I'm not sure if you guys got a chance to read that, but hopefully you did, to kind of give us some sort of jumping off point. But yeah, you guys, let's start this conversation. What does the church get when the church is communicating to single people, when the inevitable sermon series comes up about dating and marriage and relationships and sex and all that kind of stuff? What do you think the church gets right when it starts addressing when it starts addressing single people?
I think the fact that the church is addressing it is a really positive thing. I know a lot of people grew up in churches, me in particular, they didn't really talk about this stuff a lot, and so I was just really shy about it. I think in that article, they mentioned someone had said they'd gone to a church where like a girl had said she felt really awkward even talking to men of the opposite sex that she wasn't interested in, just because she didn't really have a lot of experience there. And so I thought that was just that the church in general is addressing it, and people are starting to take note that the world is talking about sex, the world is talking about dating. Maybe the church should talk about that a little bit too.
I have a hard time even thinking about the issue without getting like anger. Not this is probably one of the very few trigger issues, because when I hear the question, what have they done right, what have they done wrong, my question is, what have they not done wrong? What's one thing they did right? In terms of, I mean, that's mostly my experience growing up in the church. But like, it seems to me that when I even hear people say the church did this right, it's not even that they did a thing right, it's that they didn't completely fail and do something completely and entirely wrong. Like there's a status quo of not absolutely screwing up. There's absolutely screwing up, ergo I kiss dating goodbye. And then there will be doing something which is actually productive and improving the lives of single people in the church, especially older single people in their late 20s, early 30s onwards, who are looking to get married. There's a lot of frustration with that. Between that and a lot of shaming which people have in adolescence, I don't see a whole lot good coming out of the church.
Well, I guess when I think about what the church gets right in regards to Christian dating, is I think one of the things they get right is, how do I even put this? Creating a focus for dating, realizing that dating is purposeful, I think is important for any dating relationship. However, the flip side of that is, what is the focus? And so many different churches have so many different ideas about what the focus on Christian dating should be, as if the Bible even speaks about dating. If we wanted to go for a biblical framework for dating, you'd need to bring in your extended family and a couple of goats, which would make it very, very awkward for a first date. Let's just be honest. So I think that the church, like you said, Kara, it's a very good that the church is talking about it, because for so long the quote unquote the world was talking about sex and dating, and the church just kind of went mum on it. And we were very conservative and reserved, and that's not what you talk about. You don't talk about those things in the light. You talk about, those are the things that shameful people talk about in the light. Even though we all do this, and this is how we keep the species going. Speaking about sex, not necessarily dating there, but we just didn't talk about sex or dating, and so it's great that the church is talking about it. I don't know that they necessarily talk about it in a way that's beneficial in the long run, though.
Calvin, you mentioned purposeful dating. Before I say anything about that, do you care to elaborate? What does that mean?
Well, definitely marriage is kind of the, if marriage is the penultimate, right, the penultimate end for a relationship, or the purpose for a relationship, that's where you want to go directionally. That is what the church focuses on, because marriage is a mirror image of Christ in the church, and that kind of thing. However, so that's what I would say. It sees that as one of the purposes for dating. You're dating directionally, and I dated someone, we'll get into this in a little bit, where we dated directionally, but it put a lot of pressure on dating. And so that's really what I mean. The church creates a focus for dating, whereas a lot of people are just kind of nebulously moving around, person to person in the dating world, and there's really kind of no purpose, which is why you get so many young ladies and so many guys now asking questions like, where is this even going? What are we doing?
With that whole purposeful dating thing, I have to say that's actually one of my major problems. Like if I said a scale of 1 to 10, how big a problem is this? I would say sex shaming is up there, and making dating the same as engagement is up there. When I talk to my friends who are younger than I am trying to figure out how to date, this whole purposeful dating to marry thing basically makes it so that in order to date someone, they have to over emotionally invest in that person, and either creates an entire failure to launch or an extremely unhealthy emotional dynamic in a very early stage of the relationship. It's very bad. Dating, as it's practiced by the mainstream culture, is nothing more than a social structure by which men can get to know women. That's all it is. You have casual dating, serious dating, open relationships, closed relationships. Um, and it's not for the purpose of marriage. It's for the purpose of learning how to talk to someone with whom there is sexual tension without allowing the sexual tension to define the relationship. You need to do a lot of casual dating to learn how to talk to women. And this whole you date to marry, no, relationships which are romantic progress towards intimacy, that culminates in marriage. That's relationship. Dating is a social structure which may or may not end in marriage. Saying dating goes to marriage, like saying going to the pub goes to marriage, because you go to the pub to meet people, to ask out, to that. The transitive property has to stop somewhere, and I think it needs to stop before it even gets into the social stuff. Relationships for marriage, dating is dating.
I wouldn't say I necessarily disagree with you. I certainly don't think purposeful dating is the only way to date, but it is, just from my experience, it's what I did, and I'm really happy with the structure that I followed. I guess I was very guarded. I would say I was kind of the opposite of being very emotionally invested. I had 3 boyfriends before I started dating my husband, and they were great guys, and they were great relationships, but they were definitely guarded. I definitely wasn't going to take them to the next step, which would be maybe not engagement, but just knowing that I definitely was going to be marrying that person. But I guess I was really guarded within myself, and I was really honest with them that if I know that I'm not going to be marrying you, then we're going to end this relationship. 2 of those went well, 1 did not, but that's just the nature of feelings. But I'm so grateful that when I met my husband, and it was within a matter of maybe a month of dating him, that I knew I was going to marry him. And he is the only man that I've ever kissed. He's the only man that I've ever been sexually intimate with. And I do think a lot of that is because I was really purposeful in the way that I approach dating. Again, I don't think that's the only way that we can do it, and I don't think it's wrong to do it other ways. But I don't just say it's unhealthy. I would argue. I mean, I'm going to be married 10 years in February.
Let me put in perspective, though. There is a big difference between
yes, David, put her marriage in perspective for us.
in a relationship and dating. You of course wouldn't want to be in a relationship with someone with whom intimacy can't progress. As intimacy progresses, obviously it ends in marriage. So as soon as you see a point where we've reached the fullness of what this relationship can be romantically, this is not marriage, it's correct to end that relationship, because it's going to self-destruct if you don't. However, dating is dating and exists independently of relationships, which is a point I'm trying to drive home. Absolutely, you shouldn't be in a committed relationship. But a lot of committed relationships don't even technically have dating. And a lot of people who aren't in a relationship date. You can date someone who there's no future with because you can't even know if there's a future with them until you know them. And you can't know someone most of the time until you've been on a few dates with them at least. And then it's a matter of what you want from it. I think it's kind of silly when people do it, but I don't think it's wrong when people end up dating because dating is fun, as long as both parties know this isn't a committed relationship, we're just dating for fun. On the flip side, you have a thing where you kind of use dating to feel out whether or not you want a relationship, and once you find out you don't want a relationship, which is like me, you move on to the next thing.
I think people use
those two, though.
But I think people use the words interchangeably to be sure. Yeah, I mean, people say, "Are you dating?" It's like, oh, well, yeah, we're going out on dates, and that's what it means for some people, and then for other people, it's like we're in a dating relationship, like we're only seeing each other exclusively. This is my boyfriend and my girlfriend. That's a dating relationship. Kara, I man, it's so weird because I love that it worked out for you, and so I think a lot of my angst comes from the fact that it hasn't worked out for me. And like I read. The last young lady that I was dating, I was very much into her. You guys probably know a little bit of that story, and it was basically serious from the get-go. I mean, what are we doing? What we both believed the purpose of dating is for marriage, and so we read Timothy Keller's The Meaning of Marriage. We read that together. And we would read 2 chapters a week, and we would discuss that. And she was reading it with her girlfriends, and I was discussing it with some of my guy friends. And we would get online, and she lived down in Florida, and I lived here, and so we would get online, and we would talk about our thoughts about this. And the whole book was really about the importance of purpose for dating, and what is the purpose and the meaning of marriage, hence the name of the book. And so it put this whole serious tone on the relationship. Now, bear in mind, we were also separated geographically, so we couldn't just get out and go get a pizza and kind of just be cool. But still, there was this pressure of, what are we doing? What is the purpose of this? Let's talk and be serious about this. Let's tackle all these issues, because if you're going to be the person I'm going to marry, we need to figure this out now. And it was never, ever fun. It was never fun. And I like her. She was cool. She was nice. She was a beautiful Christian young lady, and she's going to make some other guy very, very bored one day, or maybe happy. I don't know. That's terrible way to put that. But I was very bored in the relationship, and I just felt like, whoa, why do can't we just order pizza? What do you want on your pizza? I don't want to know what you want to name the kids yet. I want to go out and have fun. I don't want to put this much pressure. And I think that sometimes the church, in stating the importance of marriage, and marriage is important, this is why you're having so many debates about what marriage is and what and is not in our culture today. I think that because we put so much focus on the end game, that people can't have fun. It's actually put me off dating Christian women. Not on the whole, but I really don't like dating Christian women for that reason.
I'm right there with you, Calvin. Like, it's mind-boggling, because if I wanted to get dates, I could get dates with any number of non-believers. Not in a relationship, but they just don't take it seriously. In that I don't necessarily want to be serious when I first start getting to know someone. I want to have fun when I'm getting to know someone. And Kara, I'm interested in your perspective on this as someone who had success in that, because on a very fundamental level, when it comes to dating within the dating to marry subculture, which I think is really just the same thing as an I Kiss Dating Goodbye subculture that has changed the words around a little bit, I really feel like I'm set up to fail. And as I've gotten older, 21-year-old me was pretty much okay with it. 28-year-old me is kind of like, well, now I've had 7 years of failure.
I was going to say, I mean, I think there's a huge difference between what you guys experienced and what I've experienced, because I got married when I was 22, and so I didn't really have those years of post-college, being single, and I think that's a weird age to be single, because our churches aren't really set up for it. You have like college ministry, and then you have young marrieds ministry, and so if you're in the middle, it's like, all right, put all the singles together. And I totally think I'm in a different place than you with not having that experience. But I would say that I think, just from my perspective, I was friends with the guys I dated a long time before I dated them. So I get what you're saying, that if you had just met somebody and you didn't know them very well and you're interested, you might date for a while for fun, get to know them, and then you would kind of, after a period of time, know if that's someone you'd want to continue dating in a relationship or not. I didn't have that perspective, and I don't think it's wrong to do that. Absolutely. I think as long as you're treating somebody with love and respect, and that's fine. But for me, I was very, very cautious in who I went on dates with. So I'm not just dating someone that I don't know. It's someone that I've known for a long time, I'm friends with, and now I'm interested if there's a romantic connection there as well. Because maybe I wouldn't have necessarily thought that. I thought they were attractive, but I don't really know if there's chemistry. And so that's really what I was pursuing in dating, not do I even like them. of course I like them, they're my friend, but could I like them in a different way?
So,
See, I think I'm wired completely differently than that, because for me, and just call me a guy, it's like, good, is she hot, does she look good on my arm, I mean, obviously that's the physical side of things, that's the sociological, look at her hips, will she bear children well, I mean, those kinds of things. Am I attracted to her? And I meet so many women, especially Christian women, who are in friendship relationships with guys, and then they kind of like, can I like this guy? Can I not like this guy? Do I even find him attractive? He's kind of cool. He's got some nice. And I meet so many Christian, not even just Christian women. So this isn't part and parcel of being a Christian woman, but a lot of women in general who kind of over time start to see someone in a sexually attractive kind of way, or in a manner that they could be with them as more than just friends. And that's so weird to me, because I'm off the bat like, what is the number one ideal for me? Looks. Even though that's fleeting, I want to make sure, I hope that she's pleasant to look upon, and I work on my body, and I hope that I am pleasant to look upon. We touched on that a couple weeks ago in another manner, but I just don't even go there. I don't understand the mentality of kind of starting to like someone. What happens with me over time is finding out the things that annoy me more than, because at the very beginning I'm like, hey, I love this. This is great. This woman is awesome. I like being around her. She's so cool. And then we're in a relationship, and over time I'm like, that thing that was really cute at the beginning really is bothering me now. But I start off, maybe I'm starting off in the wrong spot because you're married and I'm not.
I don't think it's right or wrong. Like, I think it's okay. I think it's just differences. I think you can start off with a physical attraction to somebody, and then and you could find out that they're not a very nice person, or you could find out they're a really cool person. It can progress that way. You can also meet someone that you don't necessarily find attractive right away, and you get to know them, and their personality kind of makes you see them in a different way. I don't think it's wrong that you were looking for physical attraction first. I think you should, Calvin, personally be open to maybe somebody not looking a certain way. You might not have, like, you might picture a girl in your head right now that's your perfect wife.
Nope,
and God might surprise
not gonna happen. Not gonna happen, Kara.
All right.
Kara,
but what's interesting is in the dating world, I've kind of played some games in the dating world where, and not knowingly, but more so afterwards. But I actually had a very honest moment with a young lady at one point where she basically was kind of ridiculing me for not being available. Like, we were dating, and she was really interested, and I was kind of aloof. And she said, and she let me know that she was dating some other people. I was like, okay, that's how dating world works. And she said, you're just not available. I like being around you, but you're not available. And I said, look, if I became available to you, one, you would get bored, and two, you would start being rude and mean to me because you already had me. So by staying aloof, you continue to be interested in me. And it's this weird interplay, and maybe that's me being immature, and I need to settle down from that. Maybe that's a young man's game and not an old man's game like I'm becoming. But that's kind of the world that I'm inhabiting now in this whole dating world. That's a Christian girl. That's a Christian girl.
Yeah, I don't know if approaching dating that way is really the best, because if you're with someone who, if you're open with them, is just going to be uninterested in you, that relationship's set up for failure. But Kara, I had two questions for you. Once again, just because the difference in our perspective is so great. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. My screen's lagging. I just want to make sure that I hadn't lost signal. The first question is, pretend that someday you have a daughter who is in the situation of being a 28-year-old unable to find a spouse because the dating game is not advantageous to being in romantic relationships with strangers. And then the second point would be, the second question I would have is, if you have friends who, as you did, really only date people who they're already friends with, what would you have to share or say with them?
Okay, interesting.
If I can ask those questions, because those are pretty... intense, I understand.
This is now turned into the interview, Kara. Kara, the accomplice is back. Kara, you're the accomplice again.
Well, okay, so if I had a daughter that was 28 and I assume she's interested in finding someone to marry, and I mean, I honestly, I don't know what I would say. I have friends that are my age that are single and have asked similar things, like, and it's a different world than I'm in, so I don't know that I necessarily have all the answers, but I do very deeply believe that God knows the desires of our heart and longs to fulfill them. So that's something that I do believe. I think that it's important for single people to be open to the advice of other Christians. My husband was 29 when we met. So he had dated lots of girls. He took a different dating path than me. He wasn't so much on the Joshua Harris train that I was on. But,
he was on the I Gave Dating a Chance train.
Yeah.
You had him on this podcast. I mean, with you, Kara, obviously, but I think you'd have a lot to contribute then.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure.
Well,
okay,
somebody's got to watch Asher. Somebody's got to watch your son.
We've got to wait till he's in bed.
Yeah.
But what was there? Where was I going? Oh yeah. Okay. Sorry. A lot of why my husband actually, because I had been interested in him a couple years prior, and he had said he was too old for me and he wasn't interested in dating me, and so I was like, all right, whatever. Well, 2 years later, we were on a mission trip, and several members of the church had said to him, you really should consider dating Kara. You should think about her. I think she's a great girl. She'd be a good match for you. And I think not everybody would be inclined to take advice like that from older people. They might say, butt out, you're being kind of intrusive. But, he was really open to it, and he thought, okay, why not? She's a cute girl. Thanks a lot, honey. And so he asked me out, and, the rest is history. And I think that a lot of that has to do with, one, people around him knowing him well enough to be invested in his life, knowing what he was needing and wanting and helping him to look for it, and him being open to receiving counsel and advice.
Well, and Kara, I really like that because it demonstrates a value which I think, in my experience in the church, is purely missing from every single congregation I have ever gone to, bar none. And it doesn't have to be, which is being faithful to when Paul says to the community, if you burn, get married. Basically, you had your church play the matchmaker, which is kind of what it's there for in part. If you have people in the church who are compatible, who are looking for spouses, who, you may or may not bump into the right person while you're dating. That's, in reference to the original question, what's the church doing right, what's the church doing wrong? That's what the church needs to be doing. If they're going to say, don't have sex before marriage, they need to be promoting a healthy, empower people to be able to get married culture. And that means helping with things like that.
Something
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. When I was young, I didn't get to date in high school because no girls liked me, and so much so that I was always bringing guys home over to hang out and watch movies on the weekend because my first job was working in a movie theater. So I was always with guys, and then I got out of high school, started working in this youth group down the street from me. So it was guys with guys, girls with girls. So I'd always bring over guys to the house, and so my parents thought I was gay, which was really, really interesting. And so. But I didn't know this till later on, but I met a young lady. We met online. This is back when you had chat rooms and things like that. So AOL, you've got mail, that kind of deal. Yeah, long time ago in a galaxy far away. And this girl IM'd me out of the blue, and so we started talking, found out that she worked in her youth group. I worked in a youth group. She came down, checked out my youth group. It was love at first sight. I proposed to her 14 days later. Everybody told me I was crazy until our senior pastor's dad came in and preached a sermon where he said, I met my wife I went cruising for chicks at a big tent revival. I met my wife. I proposed to her 12 days later, and then everybody came up to me after the sermon and was like, well, Calvin, if you feel God's calling you to this, I guess that's cool. But really, and then we ended up having sex before marriage, and so then I kind of felt, I love this woman, but I also felt guilty, so I felt like we should get married. And so it was better to marry than to burn, so I actually sought out people in the church who could at least help make this right. And I actually had people tell me, I don't feel a good conscience about marrying you. People in the church who had the power to marry and bury in the state of Michigan. And so I had people actually tell me, legitimately tell me, I don't feel that God wants me to do this. And I can't frown on them completely for that, but this is one of those areas in the church where not many people were pouring into my life about a lot of other things, about a lot of life issues. But all of a sudden I'm in a relationship and everybody, this is the most important thing that we're going to talk to you about. Yeah, screw your finances, screw how you're doing in school. We're not going to ask you about all that. But your relationship, we've got directives and directions and advice, sage wisdom to give to you. And then I had these people who said, we're not going to help you out. And then one person did. But we got married young. I got married at 20. All that to say, we got married at 20. Nobody wanted to help do that. One person finally agreed to do it. But then no church community existed to come alongside this young Christian couple, because the message that the church is now preaching that I've seen is save sex for marriage. That's a long-standing message of the church. But now we're taking our cues from kind of the world. It's like the world says don't get married or go see and do everything in the world, and then if you have to, get married. But the church says, you know what, get your house in order, go to college, get an education, make sure you have a job, make sure you have ambition, go on, go see the world, go do all these things, but don't have sex, don't have sex, don't have sex, don't have sex. And so they put it off, and then finally people do have sex before marriage, and people are looking down on them. But when people do get married young, better to marry than to burn, there's really no support there. Like you were saying, Kara, it's kind of like you have single people ministry, college ministry, and then young marrieds ministry, but there's really nothing much there to shore up these people who are making this supposedly lifelong decision.
Yeah, it's like the place where you need the most involvement from people who are wiser and more learned is the time where, nope, man is the king of his household, you're married, nuclear family, go off, do your own thing. And it's like, yeah.
I had a special experience being part of a church in Australia while we were over there. And they actually they were super involved in the dating lives of the singles in the church. And my first impression of it was that it was really intrusive, and I was kind of put off by it. But after kind of meeting all these couples that had come together, and kind of like you said, David, it was like church matchmaking. It was like, hey, here's a single guy and here's a single girl, and you're of similar ages and you have similar desires. Maybe you guys should consider getting married. And the couples that you would never see them and say, obviously they should be together. They didn't make a lot of sense, but these couples have been married 20, 30 years, and they're just some of the sweetest people, and they really believe in it for their children, so they kind of are doing it for the next generation as well. And it's not like they're forcing kids to get married before they're ready, but when people are looking for that, they're really open to matchmaking, and I just thought it was such a neat experience. It could definitely be taken, it could definitely go wrong. I definitely saw situations taken too far and people being a little bit too pushy. But in general, it was kind of cool, and it just made me think, if people in the church really know each other really well, if we aren't just an institution and just putting together programs, and if you're single, go to this program, and then you can maybe meet another single person and go off and live happily ever after. But instead, you're actually like a body of believers, and you all belong to each other, and you all care about each other, that you might actually know some great advice to give to help people in that direction.
I think the church definitely needs to take into consideration how people do feel about each other, because there's always kind of this focus on what the two can do for one another. From the church's perspective, it's kind of like, are they a good provider? Is she a good helpmeet? Check him out. Is he serving in the church? Check her out. Does she show up and is she faithful to serve in the children's ministry and things like that? Not that that's all that a woman can do in the church, obviously, but I think there's so much pressure put on that, or so much focus put on that. And again, I'm okay with the church focusing on certain things, because outside the church, it's kind of like all over the world.
The help me is she a good provider thing.
Say again.
That sort of, with the whole help meet, is she provider thing. That sort of looking at boxes to see how people. It's not, you're not looking at a man and saying, what can he bring to the relationship? You're looking at the man in that situation, and you're saying, how much does he correlate to my ideal of how a man should be, ergo head of household, ergo provider, ergo this with the wife? How does she correlate to my idea of how a woman should be? And you don't get, when you look at it that way, this healthy thing where you look at couples, it's kind of like, wow, I would not have thought of them together, but they are, and that's productive. It needs to be based on acts of nourishment and not dogma. You can't use dogma to prescribe relationship.
Kara, I like what you were talking about, the church coming alongside and kind of playing matchmaker. I think, I guess I'll play devil's advocate here on the other side of that, and I'm coming out of a Pentecostal tradition where people would prophesy over you what you were going to be. And it didn't always have everything to do with the dating relationship. Sometimes they say, I see, God's put an anointing on you and you're going to be a pastor. And then you've got this pressure on you to become a pastor when you might actually be called to be a doctor. You might be called to be a lawyer. You might be called to be a garbage man. Who knows? But there's sometimes this prophesying that goes over people. And I saw this a lot in my church where they would prophesy over you who you were going to marry and what they were going to be like. There was a girl at my college. Kara, you graduated from the same college I did before I did, but there was a girl who told us God had showed her that her husband's name was going to be David. Had shown her all this, and so it was this undue pressure that she was going to find. Hey, wait, David? Wait, I found her husband. He's here. He's here on the podcast. But she said, his name was going to be David, and he had shown her what he looked like and all this stuff. But less to that and more to churches prophesying over people that they do know. Okay, oh, God prophesied, you're going to marry Bobby, and so then there's this pressure to look good to the church, and now you can only really date Bobby. And that's the flip side of the church kind of playing matchmaker, I think. I like the idea of the church coming alongside. I keep saying I want the church to come alongside and create an atmosphere that a young relationship can bud and grow in, fertile soil. But I'm also kind of like wary because I've seen the church abuse so many things, not just theology, but advice. There's so much bad advice in the church. I could be giving some right now.
It's possible. It's possible. There was absolutely in the same church a situation we went through with one of our girls in our youth group dating a boy who was a Christian, but he went to a different church. And there was a lot of people had a big problem with that without meeting him, without knowing anything about him. Really like wanting to sit her down and tell her about she really needs to not yoke herself together with an unbeliever, and really like pushing. What it did is it pushed her further away from the church, along with this guy who actually was a great guy, and if they had talked to him, would have realized he actually had very similar values, and maybe they had a couple doctrinal differences that I'm sure would have been worked out just fine, because not every husband and wife aligns on every single doctrinal issue. So it definitely can. If it's not done with lots of prayer, it can go bad.
It almost makes me wonder, hearing both of you guys talk. We said the church can do this matchmaking thing, it'd be great, but the question now I have is, can they do it given the spirit of legalism present in American churches?
I would say
that's a whole other podcast.
I would just have to say the institutional church is looking to do that. When I talk about the church, it has to mean the body of Christ. That means like the three of us. That means like everyone. I don't know that necessarily an institution of a church is capable of doing that, because it's just not how they work.
I think you might be right.
Ooh, I like that.
I think you may also be right, Kara.
It happens from time to time.
And you were very pretty tonight.
Thank you.
You are welcome. All right, so this one's done, and we're going to move on to hashtivism. So give me a minute here. I'm going to stop, and then I will call you guys again. Hold on.